A lot of great friends dropping by. Always good to visit with Mark Slaughter and spend some time chatting with him. And this is a guy that not only is it always fun to see, but it's always when you're with Jesse James Dupree, it is audience participation to the max. As we just both came off of Rocklahoma a couple weeks ago, where Jackal plays pretty much every other year and just crushes and brings it every single time they play. This year was no exception. But I said to Jesse after the set was over, I said, you got 4 guys in your band. Whatever your money is, I want a fifth of it. Because I said, you had me working up there as much as anybody in the band. You had me smashing the bar stool and drinking the
liquor.
Everybody thinks that I was like, there's some iced tea or something in that bottle, man. That's real Jesse James Dupree whiskey right there, man.
That's exactly why. What else would it be? When you got 70,000 people this year or something, that was like a record. Stupid
over the 3 days. Yeah,
just crazy. And I'm so proud of what they've grown into. But just that energy coming off of it. And it wasn't just you. I think every band that was playing at that festival was on the side of the stage, hanging and partying. That's just what a cool, humbling thing it is for everybody to come out and want to party like that and stuff. So if you're going to be standing that close, you're going to be drinking. You're either going to drink or get the hell out of the way. What's amazing about you, man. Not only the performer you are and what you bring on stage, and the whole band for that matter. Really, it's just unbelievable. It really is. I've said it so many times, but here's what I find really interesting about you, and I've seen this so many times, including at this year at Rocklahoma. You and I will be – the band will start playing. The intro tape's going. The band, the other 3 guys are out there physically playing the song, and you're carrying a conversation with somebody, whether it's me or the promoter, backstage like nothing's happening. Roman, your bass player, is yelling, "Jesse, get over here, you son of a..." And but here's what's really crazy about it. So you're there and you're talking to me like we're talking right now, completely just hanging out, talking, shooting the shit. The minute, in like a half a second, your foot touches that carpet on that stage, you become possessed. It's a game
you
on.
Just go. You become complete. And I'm not saying you're faking it or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it's just something comes over you, doesn't it?
It's an adrenaline rush. Yeah. Again, we don't take it for granted. And you're right. Jeff, Chris, and Roman, and the energy's infectious just coming off of those guys. So and first of all, they set a high bar with what they're doing every night. So I gotta make sure I'm holding my own, and just to come out there and make sure that we're in the moment. That's what it's about. It's about in the moment. And I used to say a lot of things about the show and such. People would get to describe it. Like I used to say it was equivalent to a man being shot out of a cannon. And then I actually got shot out of a cannon.
I was going to say you actually did that, didn't you?
So I kind of know the difference. But really, over the years, I've looked back and I've thought about it. And what we do every night is we celebrate the fundamentals of rock and roll.
Right.
And we're unpretentious. And I think the gap between us and other bands that may take themselves too serious. And I think that gap is maybe even widened over the years. No, seriously.
Is that because you've gotten less serious or they've gotten more?
I think seriously because people have gotten more full of themselves, and maybe because we've learned not to try to be too, because again, that gap is, I love that gap because it separates us from, and God bless those bands. They got every right to handle themselves or approach things how they approach it. I wish I could write a song that could cure cancer. I just don't think it's that I'm going to be able to write a song. Maybe Bono can do it. I can't. Right. And God bless him if he does. Right. But what I can do is I can step out and celebrate those fundamentals of rock and roll. And I've got the damnedest thunder of drums behind me with Chris. I've got Jeff's guitar tone, which is ripping out. I've got Roman. Just with death bass sound. Collectively I think we sound like God's balls. And when it all comes down on the one. So. With no BS and no blowing smoke up our ass, I think we just simply celebrate those fundamentals of rock and roll. 2 guitar, bass, and drums, chainsaw, if you will, a bottle of liquor, and 70,000 people in that case that are, that are ready to just blow the roof off us. People, people bust their ass. Think about this. Think about the year long that most people out there working all year long and making sure that they're focusing and saving and prepping and planning for that week.
Right.
Or for a show that's coming up 8 weeks away or 12 weeks away. and it's not easy to go throw your money down to go out to these places anymore, and just everything that it takes to get out there to the shows and such, and the fact that people will take and make that time to plan it. They come out there, they're ready to escape from them if they want to blow it off, and again, just celebrate those fundamentals with us. So that's what we do.
See, it's really important that you acknowledge that, and that's one of the reasons what makes what you do so great is because there are a lot of artists that you're out there on tour and you're playing however many shows. It's it's another show I got to get up for or whatever. To that audience, that's the only show that year. That's the only time they're seeing Jackal or whatever band they're going to see. So you acknowledge that and you bring it to them in that way, and I think that's one of the things that is so that comes across so much about seeing the band. Not only is it real and it's live and it's raw, but you have that appreciation. You know that audience is there for that moment, and it cuts right through. Did you ever have an instance where you walked out and like I said, man, you're like mild mannered, you're just having a chat like we're having now, inches away the band is playing the set, and then the minute you touch that carpet where there's a carpet, the reason why I say carpet is usually you put a cutout carpet in front of your your mic stands.
We bring red carpet. If you notice, we always bring our own red carpet.
Right.
And that goes down in front. So we're always on the and if Randy don't have red carpet here for me tonight, I'm not singing.
Gig's over. Yeah, red carpet.
No red carpet.
He's going to Home Depot right now.
Hope he can afford it.
But have you ever had a case whether you were sick or something that derailed you or something on your mind or whatever where you walked out, and all these years you've been doing it, where you walked out on that stage and it didn't click for you, it didn't come together, you just had a bad night?
No, that's a twofold question. I mean, one, I've had, I won't lie to you, there's moments when I'm not able to have a conversation with you or others right before as the band's starting to play, and that's really that when the band's ripping that out, that's really our sound check. That's when the sound man's whooping it, pulling it all together, and Don Tartt's just hands down I'll say he's the best sound man out there for what we do.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy just crunches it, and so but there have been moments, especially, you get, we do 100 shows a year, and we just finished a 3-week run out to the West Coast, and you get away from home, whether it be away from your family or away from the office or whatever, and there's nights when I'm not sitting there talking with anybody, and I'm in the dressing room, and it fires in and stuff, and there are nights, admittedly, that I have to remind myself, I'm blessed to do it. Don't think for 1 second you're too tired to do it, or you're not into it, or whatever. There's something about when you feel that heat, you feel that energy, but there are moments when I'm sitting there and I'm by myself in that dressing room, and it's still about split seconds away that I'm saying, okay, you could be pouring concrete tomorrow,
right?
You could be getting up to have to go pour concrete, so you get your ass out there and celebrate it, And that's no BS. I mean, that's honestly, that happens. And as far as being on the stage, which is your second part of your question, there has been nights when things don't click. Like you go to scream into the microphone and it's not working, or you go to hit your guitar, you turn your guitar on and there's a radio station blaring through it, or something.
Total Spinal Tap.
Yeah, when the radio frequencies will come through your amp sometime or something. And I use Fender Tone Master amps, and they're just the most organic of amps, and they just, I mean, they're so pure, the Fender Tone Masters are, but they are subject sometimes to be temperamental to figure something. So if the guys don't sometimes they can ground it and get rid of it, but there's nights whenever you hit the stage and something doesn't go right, or just some nights the room doesn't lend itself 100% to what the ambience.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you like on the cruises, I'm sure there's rooms in that or outside on that cruise that you do or something where it's not quite as warm and connecting with audience audio wise.
Sure,
you know,
of course, yeah.
And or there's some rooms that are dead. It's like you're singing into a pillow.
Yeah,
and so all those things can affect the flow of the night. But I mean, but you never stop enjoying what you're doing.
And you're a guy, I mean, whether it be the chainsaws, whether it be, as you said, you actually were shot out of a cannon.
Yes.
There's a term, like people talk about, hey, that guy was shot out of a cannon. You've actually done that.
Yeah.
You was in the Full Throttle show?
Yeah. Part of the TV show.
What is it like to be shot out of a cannon, physically shot out of a cannon?
It's like, well, first of all, the barrel's 35 foot long. Now think about it.
I'd be claustrophobic.
I'll put it in perspective for you. That's almost as long as our tour bus. So I mean, that's a long ass barrel, And so you crawl down the barrel. There's 10,000 people out there in front of you. Crawl down the barrel. In my case, I chose to wear an Evel Knievel suit. So
of course,
I go down the barrel, and you're 35 foot down, and you're looking up, and so the opening of the barrel looks like a dime. You know, I mean, it looks really small because you're 35 foot away from it, and your butt's puckered like a bunny rabbit's nose because you know something's about to happen. Now, I never practiced it. I've only ever been shot out of a cannon one time. The only practicing I did was the day before.
How do you practice it?
Well, this is how you.
Were you go to school for it?
This is how you practice. Let me tell you what you practice for.
What?
Getting to your back. You got to get to your back because when you're going through the air, that net, those circus nets that you land in, they're rope, hard, and just big square, just big grid of rope. And when you go into that thing, if you go head in, it'll break your neck. So you have to flip. So in prep, the practicing that I did was the guy that owned the cannon that was very reluctant to shoot me out of it. He wasn't planning on it. He had told me he was going to, but I knew all along he wasn't planning on doing it. But when he got out to the property and had the TV cameras and stuff on him, that kind of started putting pressure on him that he had to kind of follow through. And then he started about a day before, he started getting really nervous about it. And he came running to me. He goes, "Who owns that bucket truck?" One of those like the pole,
sure,
the bucket trucks that lift up to the top of the telephone poles. He goes, "Who owns that?" And I said, "This guy named Barney." He said, "Can we use it?" And I said, "Well, I'm sure he'd probably let us use it." So he pulls it over by the net, and he took me up about 20 foot, and I had to just swan dive out of the bucket truck into the net and get to my back
as a practice.
Then I crawled, and then crawling out of that net. You know how you swim all day and you wake up and you're sore?
Yeah.
That's what, because I went down and I'm crawling out of that net, flipping out of the net, going back over to the bucket truck, getting in the bucket, going back up. This time he takes me 25 foot. Then I got flip down to flip out, crawl across the net, go down, go back up in the bucket, 30 foot, work my way all the way up to about 60 foot in the air, to practice coming that far down,
right.
Because you just got to get that sense of where you are and flip. And thank God he made me do that, because that was the only thing that was a familiar. That at that point it became familiar to me the next night. So I'm in the cannon. And you're inside the cannon, and so there's 10,000 people, and the band's playing, and I'm right in front of the sub cabinets, so I'm getting it's just vibrating inside this box, this cannon, and he goes, "Okay, I'm going to count down from 10. When I get down to 3, you're going to exhale, and you're going to seize up with everything you got, because you're going to go from 0 to 75 in a split second." So I'm in the cannon, and I crawl down the cannon. I'm looking up at that hole, and I hear him start counting down. And that's all I'm hearing. So I was at 6. So I'm counting, and then he gets down somewhere around 5 or something, or wherever he was, and he goes, and I'm going, "What the hell is that?" And then he goes, and then boom, I'm gone. I mean, just completely, because he didn't tell me. I didn't know what. It wasn't until I got into the edit of the TV show that I heard what he had said. He was counting down to the crowd: 6, 5, 4. Let me hear everybody make some noise. And then, 3, 2. So I'm in there just totally confused, but needless to say, I didn't have a choice. I was out of that cannon, and there's crowd, I went over the crowd's head, which is probably the dumbest thing you could do ever. I literally went over the crowd. So I'm over the crowd, the band's on the stage, and in my mind it's slow motion, and I can just see it like it was yesterday. I'm like, "Oh, there's like I'm the flying nun up there." So I'm seeing there's the crowd, there's the band, but I'm looking for net, and then
what actually propels you out? Like when what is your butt is against like a giant plunger? Like what's the actual thrust that pushes you without hurting you? The push out.
He says, "Jesse, one day you're going to be at some guy named Randy's house, and you're going to be doing an interview with Eddie Trunk, and you got stars in front of you, and you're going to be talking, and he's going to ask you how this works, and you got to give me your word right now that you will not ever tell anybody."
Oh, it's a secret.
Works. That's what he said. He seriously said, he goes, "One day you're going to be drinking some beers with some buddies, and they're going to want to know how it works, and you cannot tell them how it works."
So there's
a lot of dynamite, a lot of gunpowder.
But what do you feel against you when it pushes out? The actual impact of being pushed out of the cannon doesn't actually hurt you.
I'll tell you this. I wake up in the morning still, these several years later, and I wake up in the morning and my back, and so I'm like, oh, it takes me a minute to get. It definitely. It definitely affected me. I mean, yeah, because again, I think I was confused in his count, and I think I probably wasn't as seized up and prepared as I should have been, and it jolted my body. I mean, I still feel it these days. That and the motorcycle wreck that I had, and being blown up in a box of dynamite, all those things combined make me feel a little rough in the morning sometimes. But yeah, the being blown up in the box of dynamite was a kick in the ass, because there literally was dynamite back, but there's this plate behind you. He didn't tell me, I couldn't tell you. So in the box of dynamite, you get down in there and there's literally a massive amount of explosives back behind you, but you got this plate on your ass, and you push back on the plate so that it pushes it back on top of the explosives. But it's a big steel plate that won't go through, so the explosives don't go through the plate. They just take, and the pressure literally just kicks you like if you were just a broad swat, kick me in the ass, throws you out about 15, 20 foot, through the box and everything else. So that was in itself, that was a jolt as well.
It is amazing, man. I'm telling you, if you haven't seen Jackal in a while, you got to go see what Jesse brings and the band brings. I said this to you and all the guys when I saw you a couple weeks ago at Rocklahoma. One of my big peeves these days is seeing these bands setting up computers and iPads on stage and tracks and this and that. You guys, I mean, you put up the big old, monitor speakers on either side, and you just go for it.
I tried to use ear monitors. I tried them once for a while. I tried, but I couldn't use two because it felt like I was in another room. It was like having sex with a condom. I mean, it just wasn't good at all. And so I started just using one ear in my left ear, and it's like crack, because I mean, you can't, all of a sudden you got your voice is like right there in your ear, and I put up my guitar and my vocals in that ear monitor, and I was just blowing my ear out. And so I realized I had to stop, because when I go out to eat, my wife has to sit on my good ear side.
Right.
because I can't hear. But yeah, I tried it, but yeah, we're back to just monitors and power. We got like 12 Crown Power amps that we carry around that power all of our side fills and drum monitors and stuff. I mean, Chris has a dual double 18 cabinets behind him, 4 12-inch speakers and 2 2-inch horns just for his drum monitor. So that kind of blows through him, and it actually comes together about right where I'm at. So I got that in my back, and then I got the side fills, and it's seriously, it wraps you up. And going back to the energy you get, I mean, it feels incredible. It's just like just that thump and this day and age, just to see a band plug in their guitars into amps and that buzz and see real drums and real singing and real playing, it's just like Jeff said to me, your guitar player, he said something to me about he sent me some of his stuff. He sent me his book and his shirts and all that stuff, really, really good stuff. And he said to me something like, read my book, it's almost as bad as my guitar playing, or something like that. He said to me along those lines. I go, you know what? No, man, your guitar playing is great, because it's perfect for what Jackal does and is. And it, that guitar bangs off his knee, you hear it, and he's just, he's swinging it around, and you're out. I mean, let me tell you something. It's the real deal, man. It's just so great to see a real live raw rock band doing it the way, like you said, the fundamentals, man. I'll tell you about Jeff's sound, though. That I've seen really world acclaimed guitarists come up and ask him about what he's playing through and how he gets that sound. I mean, Billy Gibbons and I mean, God, just over the years, the guys from Brad Gillis, and I mean, I've just had a lot of people over the years that are phenomenal, like guitar guys,
technical guys,
that I've seen them, the corner Jeff, and say, now, what are you playing through? Because he's got a great sound, and everybody knows that's another good thing about the band. Just over all of our tones, it's loud, but it's it's a good one. Loud is relative to offensive. So, because I can scream in your ear, and you may say, oh, that's too loud because it might be offensive. But if something sounds great, it can't get loud enough.
Right. Couple quick things, and I'll let you run. When we were at Rocklahoma, one of the things you and I did was stand on the side of the stage and watch Blackberry Smoke, who are doing tremendously well. Charlie's such a good dude. All those guys are. I just had Charlie on the show, actually, just very, very recently. But people may not be aware of this, but at Blackberry Smoke coming out of Georgia as well. You were involved in them early on, right? You had told me something when we were watching them play, that you thought Charlie was one of the best guitar players you've ever heard.
Not I think. I know. Charlie's guitar playing is phenomenal, man. He's a badass, and he can play anything. I mean, but
you worked on their demos, right?
Well, no, I did. I produced their first album.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They came. Charlie and Britt came up to the studio and said, "Hey, man, we wondered if you maybe could help us out with some recording." And they didn't really have any money to do anything, and I was so slammed at that point with everything that was happening with Jackal, and I was prepared, and I had all these reasons to share with him why I couldn't do it. And and before they came in, I was just going because I didn't want to, I wanted to be able to give them legitimate reasons why I couldn't do it. And then I heard a song called "Sanctified Woman." And I heard "Sanctified Woman." I went, "Oh, I got to produce that. I got to record that." And so they came in, and we were just going to do a couple of songs. And about 3 or 4 weeks later, we finished up a record.
It always comes down to having great material,
man.
Yeah,
but Charlie, and the whole band's great, but Charlie is just that dude is a complete anomaly because I mean he's got such a unique voice, and he's got such a unique style of playing. He played with me. He played on the Dixie Inc. record, the solo record that I did, the Jesse James Dupree and Dixie Inc. And listen to the guitar playing on that record because it's just rock stuff. But and this is the problem that I had with Charlie. If I've got a bone to pick with him, he makes it really difficult when you're recording. Extremely one of the most difficult people I've ever had to record with, because we'll lay down a lead break. And it'll be absolutely phenomenal. And then he'll say, "Well, give me another take on it." And he'll lay another one down, and it's absolutely phenomenal. And then you give him a third one, and it's absolutely fun. And then you don't know how the hell do you pick between these three? It's like,
why do you job as a producer, right?
Why do you do that? Because, I mean, everything he lays down, I mean, he can just rip it like you don't even know.
Yeah.
I mean, like you don't even know. But, like, there's a song called Tank, and, I mean, just that Dixie Inc. record, he played his ass off on that thing. And again, it was an honor to work with him and actually go do some live shows together and with me and him and Roman. And Mike Froge, the drummer who's played with Zach Wilde and Double Drive and just a bunch of different great drummer. So
talk a little bit about what you have coming up before I let you go. You got gigs the rest of the year. The whiskey's out there doing well.
The whiskey is doing incredible. We just did a relaunch in Texas, and we got a partnership with Specs Liquor down here, which is they got like 170 stores and such. So we're proud to be rolling out a partnership with them where we're giving away a trip in the next couple of weeks. So it's been running for a while, but in the next couple of weeks, we're giving away a trip to Sturgis and to the Full Throttle Saloons, Pappy Oil Campground. Jackal will be doing 100 shows. You can check those out at jackal.com. The Jesse James bourbon, the Honey Bourbon, Spice Bourbon Original, and the Jesse James Tennessee Whiskey. If you can find the Blue Label Jesse James Tennessee Whiskey, grab it. We only released about 1,500 cases of that last year, and so that's really good stuff. And the barrel house sits 15 foot from the railroad tracks, so 5 times a day the trains come through and shake the barrels. It's locomotive agitated. I say it tastes just like Johnny Cash, But anyway, so we got that, and then of course getting ready for Sturgis. We go. I've got a handful of shows, and then around mid-July, I'll be up there getting the property set up. And Mike's already up there. Mike is planning some insane, stupid stuff this year with what he's building at the property. Some really not cool sculptures and
wow, yeah, it's an amazing place. I got to check it out in the first season of my TV show. We did a bit up there with you, and it was great. It was really, really cool. Something else that just hit me that I wanted to ask you too. It just hit me because it's been a big story the last couple of days. Is this story? Have you heard this story about Universal and the fires that claimed all these master tapes?
I didn't hear that.
You didn't hear about that?
No.
Well, I see an immediate concern in your face because the early Geffen records are on, the early Jackal records are on Geffen, which Universal owns. Well, back in ~08, the place in L.A. where they keep all the bulk of the master tapes burned.
Oh wow!
And they only a Wall Street Journal or I believe or New York Times article came out the other day revealing the severity of what really went on 10 years ago, and they're just finding out that some of the biggest records and not all kinds of records, the masters are cooked, like gone. Whether it be Nirvana, Nevermind, or Appetite for Destruction, or what have you.
Well, if those were gone, ours is gone because we all recorded those records at the same time, and they probably got stored in the same building.
But there were 2 other facilities that they used. Right. So if you're lucky, you were in one of the other facilities. But if not, the first record or what have you could be toast. And
far as the masters,
artists are just going now because of this article coming out, are just going to trying to contact Universal and find out, hey, were my tapes in there? Do you still have them?
Wow.
And they just found out Steely Dan's were not there. They were stored in another facility, so those guys just found out their tapes survived. But a lot of stuff, like iconic stuff from the blues, jazz, 30s, 40s, whatever, cooked, and of course more recent stuff.
And it's also timing wise, we're at that point where the Steely Dans and the Led Zeppelins and the bands that have been out for that era, there's a new copyright law that got
reverts back.
Reverts, and now those guys can challenge those labels to make them hand the masters over.
Right.
And which is that's interesting how they would separate all that out.
Right, because I was just talking about that before you got here, that when the reversion happens, that's when you want to take your record, reissue it, do a deluxe edition, because you control it.
In the case of like a Led Zeppelin, it's obviously such a leveraged position for them that there's two things that happens there. One, the record companies have been very smart to avoid having it go to court. So as far as the challenge on that, so what they do is they'll just go ahead and make a deal that gives them a taste of something to still give a better, bigger upside for the bands like a Led Zeppelin, if that makes sense to you. Mm. So they'll just go ahead and concede, hey,
right,
while we got the machine, while we're doing it, just let us do our thing. We'll take a much less position, right, and that way we're still, and it keeps it out of court. That's the bigger thing. It keeps it out of court because there's really no one that's challenged it, in a court that's won, or there hadn't been a situation where somebody could win that, and it's still debatable as to whether or not that could be held up, because it would have to be, even though they've reverted that, it's still something that could be challenged contractually in the Supreme Court, maybe even. So it's interesting to see how the record, because those guys, those old time record guys that are still holding on to the keys to the gate there,
yeah,
they're smart, and they're survivalists too. They know how to restructure a deal.
The first Jackal record was what year? 91?
We recorded it in 91. It came out in 1992.
92. So will you, in 30 years, does it revert to you in a few years? Will you get the rights to it?
Well, that's the big question per the reversion. It still hasn't been challenged in court. But I mean, we're not a Led Zeppelin, obviously, right, as far as the amount of catalog they had in the era. I mean, we got in right under the wire. I mean, you got to realize, 1992, Napster was, the big thing, and music was starting to be pirated and such. And then now it's blown so far past Napster and such, and now it's just all about the streaming. And again, those survivalist record companies and such have struck these deals with these streaming outlets like the Spotify's and Pandora's, and you're still getting paid, but it's pennies on a dollar. So whereas an artist used to go to the mailbox and get $100,000 check, you're getting a $800 check.
Yeah, I know. Mark Slaughter was just on it with you before earlier talking about that. He's just like, because people ask me he goes about the Vinnie Vincent record that I was on. He goes, the check's like $6 when I get that one. He goes, I worry. He goes, we base our set list off of what looks like the numbers that come in from the songs people are listening to on the stream. That's how we know what people are really listening to and really buying. So
it's interesting, the study of streaming and all this kind of stuff. But for us, there's nothing that replaces a live show, and Jackal's always been more about the live show. Yeah. So we haven't necessarily been hung up on that. Most bands will go out and they do a tour to promote an album. We actually would record an album, so we'd have an excuse to go tour.
Yeah,
we did a little bit of that.
But which was not the norm back then, but is the norm now. But you guys were ahead of the curve on that one for sure.